Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the sixth session of our eight-part AI webinar series for nonprofits. I'm Aarti Chauhan from Nasscom Foundation in Empowerment Vertical, and I'm delighted to have all of you join us today. At Nasscom Foundation, through our NGO Empowerment Vertical, we work towards strengthening the We work towards strengthening the digital capacity of nonprofits by enabling access to technology, knowledge, and capacity building opportunities that help organizations create greater social impact. As part of this webinar series, our goal is to simplify artificial intelligence for the social sector and help nonprofits understand not only how AI can improve efficiency and decision making, but also how it can be adopted responsibly and meaningfully. In our previous session, we have learned about uh, multimodal in GenAI and explored the capabilities of Gemini to generate outputs beyond text. Today, in our sixth session on automating with Gemini, we will understand what Gemini Gems are and find out the difference between individual prompts versus gems. We truly hope the series becomes an interactive learning journey where all of us can explore together. Now, I would like to welcome Jed, speaker for the session today. Welcome, Jed.
Thanks, Artie. Hey, everyone. I really hope you're not tired of me yet, because I think we've had a fair number of sessions together, but I'm very happy to join you again. This week is particularly one of my favorites, honestly, because when I was initially doing my training with AI, like really like ground up training, very beginner level, after learning about GEMS or in other platforms, otherwise known as custom GPTs and ChatGPT or agents in Copilot, this is when I began to understand, like, oh, wow, this is really powerful and really accessible at the same time. This is when I began to see the possibilities of what you can do, even if you don't have an engineering background or a coding background, and so on. Now, I don't, for one. I'm a sociology background, right? So here's the thing. Let's kick things off, right? So for now, our intention really is to understand this critical component of Gemini, which is Gemini Gems. It's really your entry point to building automations and also streamlining some of the tasks that you would often find as labor intensive or really just repetitive, right? So what we want to do today is really these three key things. Let's first find or develop our foundational understanding of Gemini Gems. After that, let's differentiate them from prompts, because really, at face value, they're really just alike. They're really plain text language descriptions of what you want to achieve. There are some fundamental differences, though. Now, outside of that, let's then explore practical use cases of where GEMS can easily support your nonprofit, particularly in terms of expanding your capabilities, right? So, to move forward, let's do a quick prologue. So, in this section, what we want to do is we want to bring together all of what we've learned about Gemini so far, the capabilities of its licenses, its multimodal functions and features, and the other core functions, such as Canvas, its ability to generate different documents and whatnot. The idea here is pretty simple. Through Gemini, we'll create personalized assistants that do specific tasks for us. Naturally, we're still part of that equation, but these personalized assistants can A, manage repetitive tasks, B, understand and facilitate procedural activities, and most importantly, remember roles, context, and instructions without having to overwhelm a long unending chat, right? So here you can have transactional conversations. You don't have to use the exact same chat throughout the entire process. Now, I guess the best way to do that is really just to immediately show you how this works, right? I would like to take this as more of a show, not tell scenario. So let's bring a couple of easy use cases into our demo. So what we want to do is we want to streamline researching and most importantly, developing various deliverables from that output. So we're not only using Gemini to find information for us, but we're also repurposing that information into different formats. Now, what is the scenario? Throughout this entire session, let's pretend that we are this volunteer group, Anti-Scam Collective. Originally, this was a Philippine kind of like fictional context. So If there are any Philippines references to the code or the instructions, pardon me, because I really just copied and pasted it. That said, for the scenario, we're a fictional volunteer group called Anti-Scam Collective. Our intention is pretty simple. We want to educate and assist senior citizens and protect them from from financial scams, SMS scams, phishing attempts, and so on. Now, we're a volunteer group, man. We don't have a lot of people in our team. And the other key thing here, scams, it's a tricky subject. It's under cybersecurity sector or a topic that is growing rapidly in terms of complexity and scale. How do we keep up with it? How does a small, humble, nonprofit volunteer group keep up with such a complex topic? Most importantly, we want to do so because we want to protect the communities that we serve, right? Senior citizens. So for this, let's explore how we can use gems. So as we do it, let's first now put side by side. Like, what would this look like if it was a prompt? What it would look like if it was a gem, right? Or essentially what it would look like ideally as a prompt and how we would normally actually do it, right? So for now, maybe our director said, okay, Judd, you're the only person left here. It's a volunteer group. Could you do research on modern SMS scams in 2026 so we can run campaigns around it, education campaigns? Ideally, our prompt would look something like this. This is what our expectation would be. If you go back to our prompt fundamentals, right? It's you use a persona, context, task, and format. So it will be a long prompt. Ideally, this is what we would expect. In reality, though, let's be very honest, we're busy. We don't have time for this. It would look something like this. Now, I'm not knocking on this one in this scenario right here. This is reality. There are ways that you can make this work without having to fully flesh out the entire scenario. The way we do that is through a well-informed gem or agent or custom GPT, depending on the platform that you use, right? So we can actually make this work, and I'll show you how. So the prompt is, what are the common SMS tactics in 2026? If you put this in a normal gem, actually, let's do that now. Let's see what would come up if it was just a pure plain question in Gemini. So what are the common SMS scam tactics? Sorry, common SMS tactics in 2026. So no context, no nothing, right? Just that pure one-liner. Let's see what it comes up with. Just so that we have a basis as we use a gem later. So let's wait for that to generate. So remember, for context, the fictional organization we represent is based in India. So ideally, it should be giving me information strictly about India. So as you can see here, okay, the data spun is shifted. Okay, big round number. Let's scroll down. So right now, it seems like it's given us a very, useful, yet very generic response. Now, us being a very contextualized group, because we're supporting a very specific group, senior citizens in India, this may or may not be applicable. So let's scroll down. So all in all, very good. But in reality, as we prompted that, we also had kind of like underlying intentions with this. We weren't just researching to know. We were researching because we wanted to generate something out of this. Maybe it's a social media caption, maybe it's a white paper, maybe it's an email campaign, right? So that's what we want to kind of like create out of this. And from here, maybe you would then iterate from in a realistic scenario, you would write another prompt, it follow through and so on. Now, let's go back really quickly to my deck right here. So again, in reality, this could work. Not the best or most appropriate for your context. So let's see how we can fix that. Now, what we want to do now is, if you can join me, please open your Google Gemini accounts, and I would like to walk you through where to find gems and how to create your own gem, okay? What we want to do is we want to access gems. It's available regardless of the account that you have, whether you have a personal Google account or one that's under a workspace account. Those gems is universally accessible. I'll walk you through how to add instructions and how to test your agent, okay? So for this, I've already prepared a demo gem. So your gems are easily located here. So if you open the sidebar, it's actually neatly represented by a gem icon. So open that. So what you'll see here in my screen is a ton of pre-existing gems, right? So what you want to do is, if you want to test some of Google's pre-made gems, it already has some here. So feel free to use any of those. But you can also, and this is my intention here, create your own gem. Now, for us, I've already prepared a couple of different gems, and I just want to walk you through this really quickly. So I have a research gem, and later on, we'll explore this marketing gem. For now, our intention is to research, right? So let's look at our research gem. Building a gem is insanely easy. So I pressed edit. This would be the exact same interface you'll see if you click new gem. So naturally what you have here is the name of the gem. Just give it a catchy title or something that makes sense to you. Description is really internal only. So it's more for you to understand what it's for. It's nothing related to the instructions itself. If you scroll down a bit more, instructions is the prompt that's actually powering the gem. So what you want to just be mindful of is while you're writing a prompt, know that this is meant to be reused. It's meant to be generic, or at least not scenario specific. That being said, as you write your gems or as you write your gem instructions, you have to approach it with a more universal or reusable lens rather than being far too specific. I'll give you a good example. With this research assignment earlier, the way you don't have gems option on the side. Let's look into that later. But for example, the example earlier, I was researching about 2026 scam trends, right? Maybe your gem isn't too context specific to 2026. Maybe it could be scam trends in general, or it could be about any topic, but the only thing that it's reusing is the format or the format of the output, right? I want it in like 300 characters and so on and so forth. So I just want you to be mindful of that. You just need to remove any specific contexts or restrictions that will limit the use of your gem. Approach it more generically. I'll show you the gem instructions in a bit, but this is where you include them. Moving forward, you can associate a default tool. What is the default tool? If you open this, it's really just the key tools available already in your prompt field, right? This is the default output that your gem will create. For example, if you want something editable, say you want something like a draft writer, maybe you want to set Canvas as your default tool. So whatever initial output it generates, it immediately publishes it to you as a canvas. Maybe you want it immediately as an image, as a deep research tool, etc., etc. So you can actually pre-assign that. And finally, knowledge base. We will cover that later after this example. So for now, we'll just skip that section, all right? So what does gem instructions look like? It's going to be harder to view here. So what I've done is I've set aside instructions. So it's right here. So let's open Research Agent. Now, what you'll see here is that it will still follow the natural prompt formula. So you can see here, you have the persona. So you're some anti-scammer collective. You have the core responsibilities, which is a reinterpretation of tasks. You can still use tasks, honestly. So your key goal is really just three primary functions, scam research. Here's what you want. Here's what I would typically look for. Let's go further down. Internal staff guidance, meaning whatever you researched, I may want you to repurpose that into, say, an internal FAQ for other volunteers. And most importantly, an FAQ guide, which means, okay, once you generate something, maybe I need you to convert that into something that can be used by our staff, such as an FAQ guide, an interview script. Like if you're talking to, a distressed caller who fears that they have been scammed, they can use that. But as you can see, we're generating or we're recommending very generic use cases. While these are specific formats, it's not specific to a certain topic or whatnot, right? You can easily reuse this for different topics. And finally, advocacy and Facebook content. For the purposes of this example, I've actually taken this out because I wanted to showcase this as a separate gem later on. So for now, we'll skip that. Now, here's an important thing. One of the more critical components of a prompt that powers a gem or an agent or a custom GPT is standards and or in different ways, guidelines. What you should not do? What are the edge cases? Things like that. The key potential gap of a gem is hallucination, and particularly for cases like this where you have little time to verify or vet, you need to create certain restrictions that can allow you to easily spot any chances of hallucination, misinformation, and so on. So as you can see here, one of my key standards is you can only use verifiable sources or highly reputable ones, such as international organizations, cybersecurity organizations. Do not use Reddit, for example. One other thing you may want to add is a workflow. Some of you may think of activities as a multi-step process. Don't overload your gem. Break it down into a process. Essentially, think of a gem as you're hiring a new hire, or you're working with, say, an intern who's still new to the organization, doesn't have that intuition. So break it down for him or her. So as you can see, it's a far longer set of instructions. We don't have to go through everything. But the idea here is that all of this is generic. It can be applied to different topics or different scenarios. The intention really is you need to research. And the universal aspect of this is that for every research, here are my 3 key outputs. I need a summary brief, I need an interview guide, so on and so forth. So let's go back. Let's now test this, okay? Let's take that same prompt earlier, and let's run it through our research gem. You'll immediately see the difference. So for here, let's say, what are the common SMS scam trends in 2026? Now let's run that. Let's let it simmer for a bit. There you go. So, okay. Now, as you can see here, as opposed to the original prompt earlier, it's following a workflow. It's asking me, well, do you understand the scam, or do you have any foundational knowledge of this? This is a critical indicator that it is working properly because it's following my recommended process. So let's say I actually don't. Please treat me as a newbie. So this will now start to define how it's going to interact and prepare that output. This is because, again, unlike a prompt where it is very transactional, very straightforward, this is a prompt, but it follows a particular workflow and a set of guidelines and a set of other restrictions, right? So hello, it is wonderful to have you with us. Summary brief. So let's go down now. Smishing 2006. Okay. What I'm trying to look for here, though, is if it's specifically contextualized it to India. So far, not, right? GSM. Here it goes. So as you can see immediately, it's now leveraging or prioritizing local data as opposed to earlier, which was very generic, didn't even provide any references. And if I do this all over again, it will naturally follow the same process and it will follow the same nuances because it's preloaded with that context. As you can see here, even the without telling it that I'm in India, without my prompt reflecting it's India, it's using rupees. Indian regional context. So, okay, let's scroll down. Now, for example, so we're happy, right? We're happy. Let's pick one. Let's say, this electricity bill scam. Let's try this one. I am on a call with a possible victim. Could you prepare a basic list of fielding questions to help me confirm? was a victim. So what we're doing now is through this contextualized research, we can easily now generate something that understands the context of what we do because it understands that we represent this organization, Anti-Scam Collective. So it's now creating that. When a senior citizen call, again, it's interesting here because I've not told it that I was dealing with senior citizens, but because it was part of the instructions, it's immediately referring to that. Again, these are indicators that your gem is working fine. As you can see, what you're trying to save here is that how would you normally have done this if it was a prompt? It would have been a long prompt, right? All of these two queries would have been significantly long, overly detailed prompts. Because you've saved the time to pre-instruct a gem, you're now saving time in terms of interacting with it by just with these simple questions. It remembers the context and how you want that information packaged back to you. So as you can see now, I have a live call, phase 1, gentle opening and trust building, phase 2, and so on and so forth. Now it's easy to build different deliverables from this, right? We've created a script. Maybe we could turn this into an FAQ later on. Maybe you can turn this into, okay, what are, say, trigger words or trigger statements to look out for? You can build an awareness campaign on that. But as easy as that, right, you're able to create something that is all really a chatbot that was specifically designed for your context. Now, all it took was you just spending maybe 15, 20 minutes to fully flesh out a set of instructions and give it the necessary context about your role and your organization. Now, you can still follow PTFC as your basic guideline. So naturally, even for gems, you can still follow persona. Who are you or what is the role of that gem? Task, but you can expand that task into, okay, your deliverables are X, Y, and Z. If you're going to do deliverable X, follow this process. If you're going to do deliverable Y, follow this process. So your task can broaden to where it's not just task, but also task and steps. Format is, it's still the same. How do you want to receive that information? Context could be further fleshed out. Context could be you referring to any reference materials related to your task. I'll flesh that out later with marketing. It could be a set of restrictions or guardrails, as we'd call it in AI. So these are things that you don't want it to do or try to avoid to do. So, or also indicators that, hey, you might be failing. A good example of this is don't create false information or only use information based on verifiable text or based on my references and so on and so forth. Really just you reinforcing what not to do. So it's pretty easy, right? It's pretty easy. So I'll walk you back again. To create your gem, just go here, find your gems option, find a new, from here you can either test some of Google's pre-made ones. As you can see here, it has a coding partner, a learning coach. Now I've never tried to use any of these, but these are more generically made. You can naturally leverage this. How do you leverage that? Make a copy, then edit that copy, actually. So outside of that, naturally, you can create a new gem. To create a new gem, again, press new, your name, the internal description that's private to you, the instructions, and also you may want to select a default tool. Once you're done there, you can save. Okay? Now, so far, it's pretty straightforward, right? Now, let's kind of expand on that a bit further, because it doesn't have to just be these straightforward tasks like research and reformatting content. It could be so much more. Let's go back here. So what are agents then? Let's kind of unpack that. What are agents or gems in this regard? Simply put, gems are really prompts. In kind of like if you pull back, they're really still just prompts, but they're pre-saved. So you don't have to kind of like write that entire large context all the time. They're capable of remembering because they're pre-saved. They remember that set of instructions. They can easily replicate that same persona, same task, same format of output every time. And most importantly, they're capable of supporting procedural tasks. As you saw in our chat earlier, it followed my process in that any prompt that I ask, always check first. Do you know or do you have basic understanding of this topic that you want me to research? That's a critical fielding question or clarifying question before it proceeds. That builds context. That being said, you can incorporate a step-by-step process to your gem as well. You can do that by fleshing it out in its instructions. Now, gems are available for free to all Gemini users, regardless of plan. I think one of the key challenges here is if you're not logged in, that might be why gems are not appearing. So please double check if you're logged into your account. So moving forward, how do we build on that, right? So that was a very straightforward transactional gem. How do we build this? So let's expand on this research agent further. What we want to do now is how about we create a separate marketing gem? Now, as you saw earlier, we have that prepared. So I might ask you to share a screenshot of your email, of your view later, because I need to double check why it's not reflecting. So I don't have a direct answer for you there, but let's move forward. I'll circle back to your questions later on. Let's now think about what we can do if we expand that use case into something more subjective, right? Like marketing. Now, this is a common use case. In a lot of my mentoring activities, a lot of us start with writing or social media or any form of marketing agent. So what we want to do now is, here's the scene. So the marketing volunteer in anti-scammer, she left. So, it's a problem because we're an advocacy building organization, right? So that's a critical problem. So what we want to do now is we want to fill that gap. And unfortunately, the director said, well, Jed, you're up. You're the only person here left here, so you're up. Now, the problem here is that this would have been easy if we have some sort of guidance to work from, right? If we have a marketing guideline, but we're a volunteer group. That's not realistic. Let's say all we have are posts from social media. And what we need is we need to essentially replicate that. Now, that's a bit tricky because tone and voice, it's not the easiest to replicate on a day-to-day basis, particularly if you're not a marketing person or a communications person to begin with. What we'll do now is I'll teach you a trick I've learned from a very amazing consulting group I've trained with. This is something that you can replicate if you want to build knowledge or incorporate some into institutional information that's not documented to your gem. So this is now us kind of like replicating our thought process and injecting that to the gem, okay? So as you can see here, all we have really is captions. That's all we have. How do we create a marketing gem out of captions? So first and foremost, let's show you that document. So for now, what I've done is I have, for example, I've exported all those posts. So what you can see here is we have, zoom that a bit, we have 50 original captions. So for LinkedIn, for Instagram, for Twitter. So I've asked Claude to give me like, okay, pretend you're anti-scammer, give me 50 fake tweets, LinkedIn posts, and so on. So here is that kind of like repository. How do we go from here? What I will show you is something I've learned. So from here, marketing synthesis. So I want to show you this prompt. So this is something I use a lot when you're going to instill knowledge to a gem, but that knowledge isn't really your traditional PDFs, FAQs. It's not as straightforward. Rather, it may be subjective in nature, like selection criteria, or in this case, it's a marketing guideline. While it's clear, you actually enacting on it is a bit tricky because it's a highly subjective activity. So what I did here is, what you can do is you can use this prompt. In RT, I'll share this with you later so you can share with the group. So as you can see here, I've first incorporated who am I? I work for Anti-Scam Collective, a volunteer-led nonprofit in India, etc. Now, attached is a collection of social media posts published by a nonprofit. And using this collection of pre-approved social media posts, please extract our brand identity and tone. What I'm asking Gen AI to do is create your own instructions that you will understand. Now, what I'm trying to do here now is Please summarize the results into a branding guideline. I will use that as a knowledge-based artifact. Knowledge-based artifact, don't guys, it's a fancy word for attachment. No need to sound that fancy. It's just an attachment to that gem. So as a knowledge-based artifact for my social media caption generator, kindly ensure, and this is the important guidelines, make it appropriate for Gen AI, meaning it should be able to effectively instruct an agent or a gem, extract platform specific insights. This is more specific to this use case. If you see anything that's particularly recurring in any of these specific platform content, maybe export that, extract that, and package it as best practice, right? So that's what we want to do from here. So let's take this and let's generate that from scratch, okay? Let's copy this. Let's open a new tab. So let's paste the prompt here and let us upload our demo posts. What we're looking for here is, now let's put on Canvas immediately because we need to export that later on. So submit. What we're looking for here is a clear description of our tone and a set of instructions that will inform a gem. This is how you replicate that tone. Now let's see what it comes up with. Okay, anti-scam, India, brand identity, and Gen AI tone guidelines. This document serves as foundational knowledge, and let's explore it. It's a system role and core persona. You are a wise, warm, protective, and fiercely caring Indian auntie. Perfect. Psychological balance, empathetic, and calming, authoritative yet accessible, community-minded. I'm not a math major, so do not ask me to explain this formula. So let's move forward. Here, scam threat identified, analogy. Okay, but as you can see, it's now it now broke down a set of tweets essentially into a formula, into a set of instructions that will guide your agent to replicate your tone. So, prove, so on. So what you want to do now is really, I'm going to skim through this ideally you should review, incorporate your changes. You can do that through Canvas because Canvas allows you to directly edit the output. Once you're happy, you can export that now. So for me, I'll say I'm happy. Let's print to PDF, say is guidelines 2. Now, let's test this, okay? Let's test how it works. For now, let's find a blog or an article that we can promote. For example, SMS phishing tactics India article news. Let's see. Okay, let's see the Guardian. We just want to make sure that this is accessible to a Gen AI. It's not okay. It's not blocked by a paywall. So that's perfect. Let's take this. What we want to do now is let's test the effectivity of the branding guidelines and how it's interacting with the agent. Okay, so let's do A and B testing. Let's go to Gems. Let's go to anti-scammer marketing. Let's press edit. What we want to do first is let's first try to make sure we have a specific set of, we have kind of like a baseline foundation. So let's remove the knowledge base. Let's update that. Let's wait for that to update. And let's start chat. Let's try to first generate a caption promoting that Guardian article, and let's see what it comes up with. Please draft. Now, a tweet might be hard to assess because it's a bit short. Let's try a link in post promoting this article. Now, after this, let's call in a third-party evaluator. That's probably my Claude account, and let's have it assess which one is the most accurate in terms of tone and branding. Let's wait for that to generate. I need this to finish first before we come back and edit it. So let's wait for this. Take it. Oh, okay, here's the draft. Uses, okay, publishes eye-opening piece on how scamming has become a highly organized industry. It just starts. Is it me or is it a long? It's quite long, isn't it? For a LinkedIn post. It's like an article on its own. So let's open a new tab and let's see if we incorporate reference points, those knowledge bases, right? So let's go back to our gem. That's the marketing tool. Now, for you to add marketing tools or marketing reference, or no, sorry, not marketing specifically, but knowledge bases, under knowledge right here, press plus. Now, you can incorporate files by directly uploading them. You can add it directly from your drive if you're connected to your Google Drive. Import code, I've not tried it before. Now, here's the thing. We will explore Notebook LM in a later session. Heads up, I do not recommend using Notebook LM as a direct knowledge base. Use it as a prompt. Use it as part of a prompt, not as part of a knowledge base. Why is that? We've had a lot of experiences where that connection breaks and it actually breaks your gem. It's a known gem bug. And I think it's for the longest time, Google hasn't fixed it yet. So just be mindful of that. You can use Notebook LM, but use it as a reference in your prompt, not in the gem itself, because it's known to actually cause malfunctions. For now, let's upload some files. Let's use the new guideline, and let's even attach the demo posts as well. Let's wait for that to complete. Okay, we're done. Update. Copy this paste. Copy this link again. Let's start the chat here. Let's use the exact same prompt. Now, while we wait for that, let's prep our judge. So let's open my Claude account. I am testing the effectiveness of a marketing caption generator agent. Refer to my branding guidelines attached, and please assess which of these in caption outputs are most accurate to my instructions and guidelines. So we'll need to export the instructions as well. So let's do that quickly, marketing agent. So what we want Claude to do is, here's my instructions, here's my branding guidelines. Could you check which one is the best? Okay, so let's download that. Print tab. Let's just make sure it is gem instructions. Let's close this down. Let's go. Let's attach those files while we wait for the instructions, guidelines. Yeah, let's just add those two. Now, let's go back here. Namaste. I've read the Guardian article shared. Provides a sobering look at it. Okay. So it's interesting. It's following the process now. Key message, call to action, desired link. Key message, say, we're really just raising awareness. CTA would be to read the article. Desired link, please refer to what's best based on our demo posts. So let's give that a go. While we wait for that, let's copy this one. So output one would be the one without the knowledge base. Just be mindful. Output two is the one with the knowledge base. So let's wait for that. Okay, okay. This looks like it's more for like a storytelling driven affair. So that might have been coming from the demo post, how it changed the tone. And as you can see here, it even has references to why it's written that way because of our guidelines. So it's pretty interesting. Does that. So, okay, let's take this. Let's run it here. Actually, let's just remove this because that might. And let's run the prompt. Okay, while this is waiting, let's just do a quick recap. What I've shared to you so far is really a process of extracting institutional knowledge. The challenge with us is that for many nonprofits, we often find it difficult to actually document what's relevant for us, particularly document processes, workflows, criteria, and so on. So that's why a lot of our information goes when somebody goes, right? This is a way for you to actually kind of preserve that. Now, I want to highlight, because many people would then say, Jed, then what's the purpose of me if you can just plug me in a gem? It's not going to be as smart as you, okay? And also, this is only powered by the amount of information that the gem could actually extract from whatever snapshot of your kind of like your mindset you were able to take. This was really just a snapshot based on a few captions. It's not going to replicate your intuition, your ability to create new content, because ultimately it's basing its capabilities on what you've already published. It's not able to use that to create new and original angles, perhaps, right? So, all right. So let's see what, okay, before I scroll down, so output 1 is the one without the knowledge base, output 2 is the one with the knowledge base. Could you let me know over chat, which one do you think won? Which one do you think was more aligned and which Claude identified as the victor here? I'll give you a minute or two before we scroll to the results. It's actually still, actually, I don't think it's, no, it's finished now. So, okay, no choices. So let's scroll down. I hope it's option 2. Otherwise, I would have wasted your past 15 minutes. So, that's good. As you can see here, in terms of hashtags, 5 hashtags, none match the approved set. Brand tag is wrong. But then again, that's because it didn't have that set of guidelines. But that is also indicative that your set of guidelines and set of recommendations immediately improves the quality of the output. Precisely follows the formula, precisely fully compliant. LinkedIn structural template, output scenario. Output 2, again, hits the reality check beat more explicitly. So in terms of structure and hook, output 2 wins again. Style, cultural terms. Output 2 uses the exact, output 1 doesn't use this phrase. So again, output 2 is a bit more effective in localizing and making it a bit more meaningful and more, resonant with you. CTA, I wouldn't recommend this because we removed the CTA for output 2. So you can skip this because we actually put an inconsistent with the organization stated name that matches the hashtag event. Okay, so for naming consistency, that's output 1. So let's scroll down. Verdict, output 2 is the more guideline accurate draft overall. Now, I know that was a blatantly obvious, there's a blatantly obvious reason why, because you've attached references there. But as you can see, it does create impact. That was the key intention, to show you that at the end of the day, these attachments matter. And the way we synthesize the information by asking Gen AI to create the set of instructions that make sense to itself, it actually helped it to create a more accurate and a more consistent output based on your criteria and guidelines. Now, you may be wondering, well, Jed, that's great for marketing, but what are the other possible use cases of this? Well, anything that uses a subjective criteria is something that you can actually use this process, right? So maybe it's for hiring, maybe it's for evaluating, say, written reports, and so on and so forth. Subjective criteria you can easily replicate to a certain extent by having to synthesize information coming from past examples that you've used. Essentially, the process goes, take previous work you've done, ask Gen AI to export insights from it, and package it in a way that makes sense to a gem or an agent. As easy as that, you've essentially taken part of your brain and plugged it into a gem. Not to replace you, but essentially to supplement your work, all right? So let's go back. Just like that, I've taught you how to build your own knowledge-based artifact. Now, a knowledge-based artifact doesn't have to be as complex as that. It could be any file that makes sense to your task. We've built a marketing agent and we've tested that and it was working just fine. Now, thinking about the anti-scammer use cases, it's worth asking a few things, right? Is there a real need? Now, I want to highlight these questions because there is one key thing about gems. I keep saying agents, that's the more generic term for it. Gems, agents, custom GPTs, they're deceptively tempting, but there are also some pitfalls. So always reflect on these questions. Is there a real need? Now, for us, there was a real need because we were a stretched team. We couldn't commit to that level of commitment for marketing and for research. So it was plugging holes. But mind you, I've had instances where we're creating gems just for the sake of it, and we're actually creating transactional gems that is kind of like choking the process overall rather than helping. So look at it from before you create a gem, pull back and see, okay, how does this change my workflow? Because a gem isn't only there to support you individually in a particular task. It's meant to support your entire workflow. Look at it from that perspective. Where do I fit? Where do I end? And where does the gem start? And vice versa. Okay. What problem am I fixing? The one other thing that a lot of people experience why their gem may be malfunctioning is because they overload it with a lot of different functions. Particularly for your first few gems, try to make it a bit more function specific. The intention here is for you to build your capabilities of writing that instruction. Naturally, you can leverage different platforms to help you write those sets of instructions, but then again, you wouldn't be able to evaluate it if it starts breaking, right? So practice first with very transactional gems and build from there. The idea there is you're building your capabilities and your confidence with evaluating the gem. And once you're a bit more confident, then expand the use case. Can this lead to more? The answer is always yes. Think of gems as an early way to prototype automations, because from something as simple as a plain text description, you can create powerful automations and personalized assistants. That being said, a lot of our mentoring actually starts with this. Okay, what problem do you have? Oh, you're having problems with marketing. You're having problems with organizing meeting notes. Let's build a gem as a prototype. And let's see later on, maybe this could lead into something more, maybe more of a custom build, but you may not want that. That's fine. If a gem is okay for you, then that's perfect. So this could always lead to more. Maybe it could lead to ways you can reapproach and kind of like reposition how you're viewing your workflows and your services. And maybe some parts of it can actually be supplemented by AI or automations. This is a great way to test that and kind of like explore that. And finally, how does this change my role? It will definitely change your role because now suddenly a lot of the things that you would use to spend time with manually doing, you can now build a gem for. I'll give you a good example. My mentality now when I encounter a task is, can I build a prompt or a gem for this? Not about, can I learn this? So it's now us becoming the editor rather than the doer, the reviewer, not the doer. So it will definitely change your role because of AI. AI is now taking those menial tasks, but it doesn't necessarily push you out of that equation. You're there to evaluate those outputs and also refine the instructions if it starts breaking. I want to highlight one key thing as well. At the baseline of it all, a gem is still a prompt, okay? Like a prompt, it can have bad days. Like a prompt, it can be impacted by, say, if Gemini had an update. Suddenly, your gem is now a bit too agreeable or far too combative with you. It can happen because that's the nature of Gen AI. It's really a big variable. That being said, build your capacity in evaluating the instructions and evaluating the output. That's how the main change in your role takes place, okay? So That being said, to wrap this up, I'll give you a few points that you can probably explore as easy use cases, okay? So if you need inspiration to explore how you can build your first gem, here are a few common gems we've developed and other people have developed as well. So for admin tasks, something that could organize a post-meeting email, that's a perfect one. Particularly for Google, there's a great integration where you can take a transcript, organize an email, then extract tasks from that transcript and add it to your Google Tasks. There are ways you can do that. Priorities assistant, I used to do this a lot with my personal email because I read my work email more than I read my personal email. So what I would do is I would have a gem, okay, in the past week, what important notes or bills or meetings did I miss, or what should I prepare for in the coming week ahead? It'll give me like a bulleted summary, something like that. Another one is a folder chatbot. Maybe you can assign a gem with access to a particular folder, and then you can start asking it questions. Now, this third one becomes moot if you have a higher level Google Workspace plan, because then you can just use Ask Gemini rather than creating a gem for it. Ask Gemini is where Gemini appears within Google Drive and other apps, so it understands the context of where you're at. For creative needs, so as you can see here, we've created a captions generator, but that same process and same flow can be used for writing assistant. And because of Gemini's capabilities in generating images, you may even want to explore it as an image generator. Just be mindful because higher multimedia output like images can use up your consumption, can actually spike your consumption. And Gemini at the free plan does have consumption limits. So just be mindful of that. As you saw earlier as well, you can use it for grants, for research, such as, okay, every week, look for open grants that is relevant for me, right? You preload it with the background information of your organization. I personally have this, a cold conversation assistant, where I have a gem where somebody new approaches me and I have no way to build an agenda about our first meeting. I just put maybe their LinkedIn link or the website of their organization, and then it matches it to TechSoup. So I have at least some starting points for a discussion, because that's always a pain point for me. I don't know how to start a conversation. And finally, maybe a news aggregator. Maybe your organization has to follow some fast-paced news, like the war in Iran and how it's impacting oil, etc. You can use something to collate news and kind of like give you a pre-formatted output. These are really some easy use cases. Now, do you have to be limited here? No. Treat this as level 1. You can definitely build from this, right? So the world is your oyster here. Start here, then explore how else you can grow it. Now, finally, again, we're here to help with your Gemini journey. If you want to build gems with me, we do offer free 10 hours of mentoring. Just email me and we can kick off that conversation. We've done this a lot. Actually, just last week, we've created a marketing gem for a group in Myanmar. Right now, I need to build a spreadsheet analyst to review kind of like duplicates and whatnot. So good luck to me there, right? But again, we welcome these challenges. We welcome these projects. So reach out to us. We're here to help you evaluate help you build your gems. So Artie, that's about it from me.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much for showcasing how gems can work and cannot work. So I would open the floor for the participants if there are any questions for Jet. You can type it.
I'm happy to answer questions, guys. Or I hope I didn't overload you. It was pretty straightforward, right?
Yes, they might be processing it, but yeah, it's wonderful sessions, how we can create multiple gems for different tasks. Maybe if there is anything specific from the particular organization you want to ask questions, so please go ahead. Or
I
maybe you
realize
can,
as well. I realize as well already how big of a jump it was, right? We started from prompts and what kinds of files can you generate? Then
Yeah.
suddenly like, oh, build an automation. Like
Oh.
we missed 8 steps in between, Jed. But yes, please ask away.
And if anyone want to have,
You can
ask
unmute as well
question
if you want.
directly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can gems be used to build agents which learns on the go? For example, we need to have an agent to support mental health of the community. Now, that's a very, very good question. Can it learn? Yes. It can learn by you enriching its knowledge base. Now, there are two ways you can do that. A, you can build it through the contextual information, such as you maybe preserving that single chat with that gem. A good example of that is I played around with a gem for evaluating applicants because we were filling a position before, and it was getting you arrive at a point where it's hard to evaluate like really good candidates once they're side by side. So what I would do is that every time I interview somebody, I would chuck the interview notes and the CV into a single chat with that gem. So that's one way of enriching its uh, knowledge because it now builds its understanding based on that context of that chat, right? So that's one. The other one is you updating the knowledge base. Naturally, part of your role here is outside of direction setting and evaluating output is also you updating the knowledge base. It's not a one and done scenario, but rather it's a recurring responsibility. So for marketing, maybe, hey, you've had better captions later on because of the gem. So maybe you want to resynthesize that. So, but the other component there is, do you want it for that particular use case for the mental health of the community? So you may just want to reflect on what kind of information you're putting into that gem, how you're treating the output. I'm not going to give you direct answers because that's more for your organization to reflect on. We can have a private conversation about it. But from a technical perspective, yes. From a use case scenario, maybe let's flesh it out a bit more before we commit. So I hope that helps.
I think
You're welcome.
yeah. Any other question?
I don't like guys, and I hope you didn't get a migraine from this. That definitely happened to me the first time I reviewed the Google licensing because it was a lot of different layers. Okay.
I think if we are okay, and anybody can unmute also if you want to ask direct questions from Jen.
Yeah, we have a couple more minutes, and I'm happy to.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm just leaving a link for the feedback for you to share with us. Please fill out the form and let us know how you are liking it and everything. I think, Jed, that's a lot to take. I think, and you have given us a homework also. So
Yes.
yes, so maybe I think the participants will definitely gonna contact you directly uh after the session because I will definitely gonna do that. So
Happy to do. Happy to support.
sure. Definitely. So I think that's all about it. Thank you so much, Jed. Thank you so much for taking up the session. And thank you all the participants for joining us today. We'll look forward to the other session, the next session we are going to have on, I think, on 30th. Or I'll share the details next. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Jed.
See you in a couple of weeks. Bye.